Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am especially excited today because I have Benjamin Huang with me, and I'm super, super stoked. And I think you're going to find this episode extremely chock filled with great advice and all sorts of things that you're going to be like, oh, I got to go to Effie's podcast more often. Yes. And now I've finally gotten brave enough to say, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit subscribe and hit like, or get out of here. I'm just joking, of course. But no, I'm not joking about subscribing. Subscribe. Anyhow, let me begin by saying, Benjamin, welcome. And thank you very, very much for being my guest.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. And Effie, it's tremendous to have this opportunity. So thank you so much.
I feel so lucky. I feel so lucky. I'm going to jump right in because I'd like our audience to get to know as much about you as a person as well as everything you're doing in business. So I'm going to start where I often start, which is in the early years. So if you would be kind enough, could you tell us a little bit about, let me see here. I am going to do my first share. And if you could be kind enough to tell us, who are we looking at besides the very sharp light of the camera?
So it's my parents, my brother and myself. And yes, I'm the youngest one over there, the shortest one.
Oh my God. There is no mistaking who you are. Look at your picture now in real life and you haven't changed at all, bud. The
Well,
glasses, maybe.
I'm so glad to hear. Yeah, I mean, it does look older for sure.
So tell us a little bit about your parents. What did they do? And is your brother older? He looks older. So tell us a little bit about your family structure, your very early
Yeah,
years.
sure. So my dad is a computer engineer, a self-made computer engineer. He loved learning, he loved repair stuff, and he had this mindset that you just need to keep learning stuff. You need to learn until the last day of your life. That's basically what I learned from my dad the most. My mom, she used to work in a large corporate, and she become a basically a stay-at-home mom. They
What did
now
she do when she was working in business? What sort of stuff?
Yeah, so she was handling international trade.
Nice.
And yeah, so for one of those corporate, like in the early days, they do need like specific people who handle the international trade, because that's kind of a profession back then. Nowadays, I think the thing changed, but and that's not my world, so I'm not sure how it have changed. But my mom, she she was actually having a higher degree than my dad. So back to that time, it was actually a shock in Taiwanese culture. It was a shock that you know a girl would get such a high degree. So I guess my dad was very fortunate.
Yeah. And she was too. That's awesome. That's very awesome. It's interesting that she worked in international trade because I've had a number of Taiwanese students, and one particular one is working for the Taiwanese government when it comes to trade of um, fruits and vegetables. Because I did not know prior to that how rich Taiwan's lands are. You know, how fantastic the fruit is and the vegetables. And then I started noticing, I was in Vancouver at that time. I started noticing imported from Taiwan. I was like, aha, okay, I know what's going on. So that was kind of cool.
That's the number one thing that I would say I miss, the fruit. My kids now are looking forward to go back to Taiwan mainly because of fruit, and grandparents become secondary.
So tell us a little bit about your older brother.
Sure.
You know, and by the way, I can't help but see future sub two.
Look at that.
Future sub two.
Yes, yes. I was like right, like Before this podcast, we were joking, like it looked like I had been a long term sub too.
Yes, I think we'll have to have Pace make you the original
Yes, yes, exactly.
gangster. Yeah. So tell me about your brother.
So my older brother, he's 2 years older than I am. He has been and still have been my role model. He's fantastic in the sense that you like everything you can imagine that an older brother would do to a younger brother. He does that, including punch me on the face when I'm doing something wrong. So yeah, I love my brother. He has been outperformers in traditional education system. He went to the best school, you know, always like ranking number one. And if he was not number one, he was intentional to be number two.
Oh,
And
interesting.
there was incident that he was actually trying to be number two because of various reason. But he's a caring person, and therefore he's very selfless. And as we have grown up, he have been attending to one of the best school. He attended MIT and for bachelor, and went to Princeton for his PhD. Now
Wow.
he is
Wait. You just said MIT for bachelor and Princeton for PhD.
yes,
Oh my God.
yes, he is the genius. Well, he is working very hard, but at the same time, he knows how to deal with exams. And I was telling him, hey, apparently all the required gene to get the best score is has been going to you, so you better do it well. You know, yeah.
Wow.
So at the same time, people can perform so well in those traditional system and can still be humble enough to care for people. This is the true thing that I admire about my brother. I've never seen a bit of him being cocky, being, showing off and whatnot.
That's fantastic. What was he studying since he went to such premier schools?
So his favorite always has been chemistry. I think he was inspired by one of very talented teachers when he was in high school. He has since dug deep into chemistry world for many, many years, and he has been a professor in Japan. This year, he's moving to the US because he got a faculty position here in the US. So I'm
Yay.
excited to see him be in the same country with me again.
Nice. So, what sort of things will he be teaching? Chemistry?
I think so. I think mainly he's trying to focus on research. He enjoy research so much, and he doesn't really like to lead people. He loves to what he does best, and that's
Wonderful.
research.
Wonderful. So, I think it's pretty incredible that you had such a role model for a mom who was really exceptional in business, and that she also loved your dad enough not to worry about status, and that your dad was just self-made, just went and did computers, which I think is fantastic. Your brother, as you said, is so outstanding to have come to the US to enter two of our absolute best schools. MIT for me is the top. Sorry, Harvard, and Princeton and all. So that is pretty wonderful. But we still have you to talk about.
Well,
So tell me a little bit when you were just a little child, and I mean under middle school, like middle school and under. Did you do sports?
I do. I do all kind of sport.
What did you do? And were you any good?
I am very good playing basketball, and I kind of play all kind of sport. The only two that I don't play, one is golf, the other one is tennis.
Oh, okay. Okay. Golf and tennis. That's interesting because both of them require, uniforms and acceptance into, a certain court and status and, elegance. So you were like willing to be scrappy, run around, do what you got to do,
I was
go.
I was filtered out. How about that? Yeah.
My God.
But
Okay.
I love doing all kinds of sport, and I love sweat. I love to just be active, especially when I was a kid. If I am not being forced to study, I you will see me in basketball court.
Nice. Very
and
nice.
and one incident that I still remember was, when I was a kid, my dad was putting me into one of those after school for me to, advance what I should do better on, the subjects. And I basically just tried to wrap those things up very quickly because it was like watching the recording and whatnot. And I just get it done like in an hours, and then I go to the basketball court nearby. And there's one time that my dad was waiting for me outside for a long, long time, didn't see me, and then he decided to just went to the basketball court and found me there. Throughout the whole process, he was watching me, and I was playing. I didn't even see him. And then after an hour, he didn't say a word, and he just picked me up and went back home. And that was the terrible, most terrible day that I ever experienced.
Why was he not saying anything? Was he not saying anything because silence is punishment? Or was it that he was just so amazed he didn't know what to do?
I think he was trying to punish me in a way that is different than how he usually punished me. He has enjoyed high status in military when he was serving, and the way that we always has been trained or educated has been very military. So we don't really care much about relationship between my dad and us. It's more like, hey, you need to do this and that, and no question asked.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about that academics that or those academics that your father was trying to improve. What type of academic student were you in middle school, elementary through high school? We're not going to compare you to your brother because we already know he was just damn genius. But compared to your classmates, what would your teachers say? Would they be like, Benjamin is a good student? He's good, and he tries hard. He's smart. Or would they be like, Benjamin is at the back of the room and he's causing trouble.
So it's good that you asked about the time before middle school, because it does show slightly different cases past middle school. So I was actually very, very talented in a way that I don't really need to read to perform well in the exam. And so the problem is, because I focus on things that I enjoy so much. I don't really study the book that well, that some of the nitty gritty details I may not have covered, and sometimes I just don't think those are important. So I do fairly well. Usually I'll be ranging about like 5 to 8, some, like in a class of 50, something like that. But I'm not the best. I'm not like number one or number two, purely because I don't really like to spend time on the thing that I didn't think it was important. My teacher are there's two type of teacher that I've experienced. One group are like they love me to the gut, and the other are like they hate me to the gut. Yes,
Hate you.
because I was very cocky. I was showing off in the way that if you do so well in the subject you teach, then you wouldn't be a teacher right now. That's exactly what I said to the teachers when I was a kid. I was super cocky, and I was like, "Hey, the reason why I'm not listening to you because I want to learn from the best."
So that's so interesting because that's almost like telling your mother if she was so good in business, why is she being a mother?
Exactly.
Now, to be truthful, some teachers teach because they can't do any better. Having had my own education and degree in education and having taught throughout my life, I know that it's kind of the opposite, that you are going to be a mother or you're going to be a teacher because you love helping, not for the money or not because you can't do something else. Yeah, I can see how some of them might have been a little upset at you.
Yes, I honestly speaking was in the mindset of you are doing whatever you're doing, leveraging the best you can. Like I assume people are doing something just because that's the best they can do, instead of
Yeah.
that's what people love to do. So when I was a kid, I was that kind of kid. But for the teacher who loved me, they loved me being creative and being out of the box.
Yeah. Being inquisitive and being willing to put yourself out there and take a chance.
Yes, and when we were doing this like one big exam that we like, it's more like SAT in the US. Like when we need to take that exam, because I knew that I was
Is it
going.
like that? What is it? How chow? There's a Chinese exam at the end of grade
Yeah.
12. It's wicked.
Yes, it basically will grade you so you can pick which college that you want to go, and the college will pick you or whatever. That's a
Right.
weird
Right.
system. But essentially, it will examine you on all the topic or all the subjects, and depending on your score, you will be assigned to a different school. So with that exam, I, I knew that I was going to come to the US, and I was like, okay, if that's the case, I'll just have fun with it. And then I went to the exam, and I was writing. There's a portion that you need to write essay, essay to in Mandarin and also in English. So I essentially turned them into a love letter, because the
It's gutsy on such an important exam.
because yes, because the topic was just so good, and it fits so well. And I was like, me talking about this like the third parties, it's just so weird. I want to write it in a way that's a love letter. And back then I didn't have any girlfriend, I didn't have any things like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write to my girlfriend who I will meet in the next 5-10 years. And that gave me the highest score in my school. Yes. And it's like it's a huge gap. And then the teacher who loved me came to me like, Benjamin, you should have stayed in Taiwan to pursue your degree and whatnot. You should not, study abroad. And for the teacher who hate me so much, they were like, really, Benjamin? You choose to write a love letter in such an important exam? It's like, okay, you know, but that's my life.
Yeah.
People either love me so much or hate me so much.
That's interesting. Before we leave this, you touched on something I just want to expand a bit for everyone who is American or Canadian. How many students were there in your high school classes or elementary classes?
I'll say about 40 to 50.
Yeah. That's such a drastic difference
Okay.
because in North America and a lot of other countries too, there's always a fight. Don't you dare put more than 30 students in a classroom.
Oh, wow.
32, we're gonna fight. So it's so interesting to me when I was teaching ESL, I knew the answer to that. And I asked my students, tell me about the size of your class and how much space you had in the classroom and how many books and blah, blah, blah. And I think that North Americans sometimes don't understand how privileged they are to have the resources we have in our education system. It can definitely be improved big time, but still, yeah, so very, very interesting. So I applaud you for that. I think it's fantastic. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of the best application I ever read for a PhD applicant at UC Davis. And his whole essay began with these lines. My life all started with one turkey.
Wow.
And immediately I was like, if I had right now, I'd say that's a viral hook, but of course then, paper and pencil. My life all started with one turkey.
What's going
I
on?
read it again. I read it again. I had to keep reading. And, immediately I took this one and when I went into the meeting with the faculty and I was like, this one you can save for the beginning or the end, but you're going to choose them. And they're like, give them to us now.
Yeah,
And it was an interesting story, like what you're saying. He had thought outside the box and he wrote about his life and how he was given one turkey as a little child and he decided, how can I make more? And the
exactly.
business he grew and how he got curious about this and
So
that and the other
good.
thing. Yeah, it is. It's so good. It's so humane. Yeah. So where did you go to school in America and what did you study? Because I also want to get to business.
Yes. So I study abroad. My first stop was New Jersey Institute of Technology. I apply probably close to 30 college, and I only get one offer, one single
That
offer.
must have been a little bit of a slap in the face after being performing so well.
It's huge because there's a conversion system that when you are coming from abroad, you need to go through. Like in Taiwan's, the score that we're getting typically ranging about 50, 60 out of 100. And if you get like 60 something for all your subject, you could be like ranking top one in your class. But when you do the conversion, it become a D, it become a C minus, sometimes even D. So if you look at my GPA when I was converting my high school GPA to US GPA, I started at about 2.2. And that's part of the reason why, lots of college and university don't understand. And yeah, so basically that was a system, and this is part of the reason why I just don't really like the educational system, because it doesn't make sense. And of course, one good thing is we had to take the SAT and whatnot, and those score kind of reflect what I could do and whatnot. So that helped me. So New Jersey Institute of Technology, initially started with applied physics. I love physics. To start, and then I realized I spent too much time digging into the books, and I then decide, hey, I want to do something more hands-on. I then, transfer my major to mechanical engineering for, and it's actually a 5.5 year program in GIT, and I was able to complete it within 4 years.
Nice.
After that, I basically, pursue master, and Drexel University is where I pursue my master.
Yay, Drexel. Sorry.
Drexel, yes,
Go Drexel. I
go.
used to live outside of Philly. So Drexel University is a very good university. And yeah, good for you. I'm glad that you got in there.
Yeah, thanks. And during that time, there's a family incident that basically my grandfather got into a car accident and had developed this called hydrocephalus. It's basically a symptom that shows excessive water in your brain, and that will basically pressurize your brain, and you will lost memory. And that was a problem that doesn't really have a treatment back then, unless you want to do the surgery and remove the water, but the water will come right back and whatnot.
Was it as a result of the injury or?
Yes, it's a resolved injury, so it's developed into this kind of symptom. So what I was experiencing was that, okay, I was a mechanical engineer, and as an engineer I should be able to deal with the problems in my life with a engineering way. And I feel so powerless at the time that, hey, I hold this degree, but there's nothing I could do for my grandparents or grandfathers. So I was extremely upset. And then I look around and found this thing called microneedle. Microneedle is that essentially is a one of the early stage semiconductors, technology that they were developing back then. And I joined a research lab and just say, hey,
What was the semiconductor? What was the application of the semiconductor needle?
so there's all kind of process for microfabrication, and semiconductor basically create those microchips, and they use the same or similar microfabrication technique. And so if you were to create something small as a chips, then you need to learn the same technique and develop a better technique on top of that to be able to create such a small scale devices. The soft for the hydrocephalus was basically you have a microchips that has so many microneedle attached to it that you barely fail, and you basically just attach that to the brain where the excessive water is. So, and that will lead to a small tube that goes all the way to your stomach. So all the excessive water will be lead into your stomach to be digested on a routine basis. So that was a
So
technology.
Benjamin, would that little chip actually be put inside the skull?
Yes, it will
Okay.
require a surgery to do that.
Okay.
and it's more like a monitor chip nowadays with people having heart problems or other problems. You're on monitor, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, so basically that was the ideas, and I was able to work on that. And later on, I enjoyed so much in that research lab, and that actually got me to my next journey, which I basically created something, turned into a competition with a research lab at Harvard, and that's when I have a tremendous experience working at Harvard.
Wow. So this was at Drexel,
Yes,
and you got this going in the lab with other people, I'm sure.
yes.
And then it started a competition between Drexel and Harvard. Oh my God, I used to see so much of that sort of thing in the PhD programs. And they would end up being friends, but they'd be like, watch out for anybody who's coming from Harvard. They're here to spy, all sorts of things. Sort of lock down the lab.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see, and yet it gives birth to better things. How did you go from Drexel to Harvard?
So it was this technology that I was working on called microfluidics. Microfluidics is now a topic that basically has been widely used for many applications. And back then, I was focusing on building the system that would provide higher precision. And the lab at Harvard was leveraging the same technique in a slightly different way, but their way helped them to apply to many more applications.
Cool.
And so I was like, okay, I have better precision, you have better application. Why don't we work together and make one system that's just the best? That
Nice.
was my pitch when I drove 6 hours to try to talk to the professor at Harvard. It actually took me like three drives just to met him like for like 15 minutes. And I still remember it was a late night conversation. Like he was working until like 2 a.m. or something like that. I was waiting outside of his office from like three to four p.m. like in the afternoon. Wait until midnight just to talk to him.
I believe it.
Yeah, and that conversation was my first time ever trying to pitch something, just because I deeply believe it.
Good for you.
And to the end, I wasn't not able to get on his calendar, but he was seeing me too many times, too often, and he's wondering what I want to do. And he was like, "Hey, whatever you want to talk to me about, I don't have time for you, but I'm going to the bathroom. You be free to walk with me." And I said, "Awesome." So a lot of people talk about elevator pitch. I'm talking about bathroom pitch. All right.
Sorry, that's hysterical. Yeah, you'll do it. You'll pitch it wherever you can.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And
Oh my God.
fortunately, the professor wasn't someone young, and and so basically it took a little more time. Allowed me to talk more, which was my edge, right? Yeah, but that's exact thing that crossed my mind during that time. Like he was like, "Okay, you can walk with me to the bathroom," and I quickly calculate, okay, how much time I have, right? And honestly speaking, I was looking forward to that meeting to the level that I developed a 15 minutes pitch, a 45 minutes pitch, and also a 45-second pitch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I basically started with my 45-second pitch, and then I get into 15 minutes pitch after he found interest. It turns out very well. He basically invited me to his office, and we sit down for 1.5 hours after he returned from the bathroom.
Right then and there.
Yes,
Wow, that must have been a late night.
it was a late night. So I still remember when we walk out, I start to see the sun coming out.
Oh my God.
Yes, and I was a poor student. I didn't have money for hotel and whatnot, so my only choice was to jump back to the car and drive back to Philly. And but I was so excited. I was calling my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, and I told her that, "Hey, I'm so excited." And she was like, "What's going on? It's 5 a.m. in the morning." I was like, "You have to listen to me. This is important." Because from the day one that I met my wife right now, or my ex girlfriend, I've been telling her that one day I will be in MIT or Harvard, and from someone who got bachelor from NJIT and then Drexel, it doesn't sound too convincing.
I understand. I do.
I deeply believe that. And I just know that that's going to happen. And so when I was telling my wife, and she was like, "Oh my God, really?" And then I shared the whole story and whatnot. On my way back to Philly, I got a offer letter, which enabled me to work at Harvard for 7 days.
Wait, 7 days?
7 days.
Wow, they were being so generous.
Look at that, right? So 7 days to provide a proof of concept, and they
Wow,
basically use the remainders of the funding to not even pay me, to basically to help me get all the badge or permit and whatnot. That's it. I am paying for everything, and
interesting.
so
I
um,
bet you marveled at how much money Harvard has.
exactly. Look at that, right? Yeah. So
Uh,
that turns into a exciting story. Although it's a 7 days, I took the chance and I just went over, and do my magic. And I still remember by the end of third day, the assistant came to me. The professor assistant came to me and say, "Hey, we want to sign an extension with you." A 7 days turned into 3 months, and then turned into 1 year, and then turned into 2 years.
Yay. Hey, that's like a master's.
Yes.
But you're already doing the work in the lab. That's pretty cool. Wonderful. And was the chip that you were envisioning for the purpose that you were driven by, meaning your grandpa's tragedy, was it developed and put to use?
Yes, it was started to show up on the research paper, and later on, someone took it to the market. So it is now a valid or actively used procedures.
Wow. Too bad you didn't get any financial benefit from that. Or did you? Did you get any
No,
financial? Yeah.
no.
Yeah. I've, like I said, I had a lot of PhD and master's programs. I had many grad students underneath me and faculty that I know, and curating it so that you're the owner of the idea. It's a wicked battle, and it's only won by the very experienced, and usually it's the university will end up owning everything. Yeah, so people don't usually get famous for the money they make. They only get fame from their academic contribution, but it really does help humanity. I mean, that's how research is done. So
Yeah,
thank you. I'm
yeah,
sure that there's somebody else's grandfather or younger people that have benefited. And
yeah.
that's good.
And I really appreciate the opportunity for me to even do that. I don't really care about the financial aspect of it, honestly speaking.
Mhm.
If I didn't have all the resource and all the support, there's no way that can get to where I'm at today. So
No, that's the thing about research, right? It does not happen in a vacuum. Yeah. So once you had been there for a few years and this was on its way, can you talk about your career path in that? What inspired you to pursue the career that you're currently in? Because we're in academia now. We went from, I'll start from here, Taiwan and young years, being raised with very intelligent people and challenging, getting over into the States and then getting into Drexel and working at a Harvard lab. How did you get to where you are now? Talk about those steps
sure. So
and why. Because a lot of people, when they get in academics, that's it.
yeah, this is such a great question. I deeply believe that we are here to create value to the world. So when I get to work at Harvard, that was one thing that crossed my mind. I have the resource that most people in the world don't have. In fact, there are a lot of equipment and whatnot vendors provided to Harvard for $1, while they selling those machines for millions of dollars. And the only reason why they want to do that is Harvard is Harvard. When Harvard is using the machine, everybody follows suit. So that is where I quickly recognized that I had. So I started to work so hard, and I was put in a project that was dealing with the last pandemic, which is Ebola virus. Not COVID. Before COVID, it was Ebola virus.
Yeah, the Ebola virus came first. Were you at Harvard then?
I was at Harvard. Yes.
Okay.
And microfluidics being the technology that has so many potential back then, we were using microfluidics to develop a biological model that helped human predict how virus would mutate in the next decade within 20 minutes.
Wow.
That was our first step ever for humans to outpace natural development.
Oh my gosh.
First time ever.
I imagine at this point, your family, including your brother, must have been a little bit proud of you, if not a whole lot.
My parents stopped telling me to work hard, stopped telling me to like study and whatnot. They just told me that, hey, just make sure you eat and make sure you sleep.
Wow.
So yeah,
Benjamin, that's so fantastic. Your path was different than, the family. It's a little bit like your dad's. You touched on the fact that he just went and did his thing. But good for you. Good for you.
I was very proud, I have to say.
Yeah, I think when you work as hard as you do and you understand that, you're in a very unique place and it's the citadel of the citadels, you have a right to, you can't help but feel like, oh my gosh, I did good.
Yes.
A little bit like when your teacher and your student that comes in and was causing problems ends up leaving at the top of the class. You're like, yes. Or when you are a father, because you're a father now,
Yes.
and you start to see what you have done and given is making your child and the world a better place. There's just something about it.
Yes.
You enjoy doing it anyhow, and even if you weren't allowed to feel proud, you'd still do it. But pride is kind of an intrinsic gratification that you give to yourself. Yeah.
This is so true. And I have to say I enjoy the process so much, even though I was physically suffering. Like
Of
I only
course.
slept like 4 or 5 hours every day. A lot of time I slept on the couches instead of going back home. But it
I remember those days when one student would come in and say, Effie, so and so has slept in the lab again. And I'd be, okay, get away from here. And I'd go get them muffins and coffee and go in and say, I understand you slept here last night. And they'd say, oh, sorry. And I go, here's some food. Don't forget to shower.
Yes, yeah. This is why you can easily find a shower. You can easily find a shower room at Harvard.
And in any
And
university,
yeah,
they know exactly where to go. Go get a shower, dry your hair, come back.
yeah,
I encourage them to keep a change of clothes there, but I've seen that and I understand it. I do. I understand it. And
yeah,
I applaud it.
yeah, yeah.
Applaud it.
I mean, young people should work hard to do what they can do best. I deeply believe that. So back to that point, I was working on Ebola virus project. Back to that time in the U.S., that was kind of not publicly known, but we kind of the DC or Washington treated like the top secret, and so we were reporting back to the White House and whatnot. And there's just one point that I realized that, hey, we work so hard, how come we don't even get paid enough to be able to go out and get a decent meal? We always get like $5 of food from the food truck, and we could never go to one of those fancy restaurant near the campus. And I was wondering why. Like, can does the professor make way more money? Like, that's what I thought. So there's a point that we were having a meeting with the White House, and I was like, hey, if you, because White House was kind of giving us a lot of appreciation and tell us how great that we're doing. And I was like, okay, thank you for the word, but can you help me understand why we're not being rewarded monetarily? And that became a very sensitive topic. Of course, people just didn't put any comment on it, and I've been given a lot of weird look and whatnot. So it's a weird silence, and I survived it, and then I got out.
You might have survived it. I suspect that your professors probably were having heart attacks.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. So, but that was the way I act. It was very inappropriate in some, circumstances.
Listen, whenever that happens again, you just have to say, "Oh, did I just cause a cultural faux pas? I'm so sorry." In my country, would ask that at any time and watch them go, "What?" I love it.
Yeah. So, of course, that basically what happened at Harvard, and then I
Did they fire you?
no, they did not. They did not. They just gradually cut the foundation.
God, he wants to eat. Okay, let's starve him.
Yeah. Yeah. So what?
It's
So
so funny.
and during that time, there was a project that was also very intense. Like we all slept like 4 or 5 hours, and unfortunately, four of our colleagues in South Africa who kind of captured the sample for us and whatnot got infected virus, and we were not able to develop a cure for them. So it's just very sad that we lost them.
Did you know them?
Yes, we I met with them on a daily basis, and it's just very sad. And
Of course, of course. Here you are, you're trying to fight it and it takes you down, which of course is what happened with COVID, right?
yeah, yeah. So
It's
that
dangerous.
become yeah, and that become a very intense experience of my life, and actually to many of our people in our team. And I basically just exit the the projects, and then I took on a opportunities, basically go to Montana to build a national lab for the US. So that's what happened for the next last the next 2 years.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I
Which
can I can understand. I'm sorry, but I can understand. You know, you see, your I did lose friends, not to Ebola, but to COVID, and I marvel at the nurses and the doctors and the such who are on the front lines. I just marvel. But if I were one of them, I would have turned around and started running as fast as I
yeah,
could.
yeah,
So I understand it. It's self preservation.
yeah.
And how did you went from that to building a lab in Montana?
Yeah, so honestly speaking, during my time at Harvard, I was encouraged to pursue a PhD at Harvard, and there was just some people give me encouragement, some people they don't. I still remember one of the postdoc from China. She has a MD and also PhD, and I was doing my research and all that, and she came to me and like, hey, I saw this data. Oh, by the way, where did you get your PhD? And I told her that, oh, I haven't got my PhD yet. And she said, "Oh, okay. If that's the case, this data is not valid."
Oh yes,
And I
that's
said,
what you call hoity-toity. I know, because I do. I understand that.
and
Did you understand it, or did you just think you are have a brain that's the size of a pea?
I basically just asked why, and she said, "Without a good PhD, not just any PhD, without a good PhD, you don't do good research." And so that was the point. I was like, "You're right. Guess what? I'm going to say no to the PhD offer and then go out and build something great myself."
Good. I do. I will agree with her in that if your PhD is not of a certain caliber, it doesn't help you because, of course, all of the top tier universities do rank the PhDs and the universities and colleges. And there were people that came to us from like a community college type of thing that managed to somehow get a PhD. And you're like, did they get it online? And the faculty were like, no, we're not even giving them credit for a master's.
Mm,
And they were so upset because they'd put time in. I get it. I get it. But once you get to a decent school, but I understand, but in some ways, some of the best research has come from second tier, not necessarily top, top.
yeah, I see all kind of great stuff from mid level school.
Hmm.
Yeah, but back to the story, it was just not something that I appreciate from the education system. And I was like, hey, you get your MD, you get your PhD, but now you're still in the same lab like me, right?
And you're like, your brain might be the size of a pea, but mine is the size of a potato.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah. So Anyhow, that was kind of probably my last 2 weeks in that lab. Actually, there's a small transition. I went to the neighboring lab, and that lab turns out to be at Harvard Medical School. And that was a lab that has been ran by a postdoc for 7 years without producing any single publication. And they're losing their funding because they only have like 3 months left. And so basically what I saw was there's so much I can do with their topic. So I was telling the advisor and say, hey, why don't you stretch the remaining 3 months to 9 months? So just pay me one third. Like stretch it to 9 months. Let me see if I can do something with it. And then I switched lab to work in there. And of course, the postdoc was being fired and whatnot. And then I worked on that project for like 5, 6 months, and produced the first ever publication. And
For that lab?
for that lab. And that was me proving for myself without a PhD I could do something great. And also that publication was in the similar impact factors of natural in the industry.
Had you ever done a paper on your own before?
I have done with my master advisor once, but he did probably 80% of the work. I just do
Got
the
it.
legwork. But this paper that I got done from Harvard Medical School was actually 95% of my work.
That's
My
fantastic.
ideas, my work, my writing, my graphic design, all that thing.
Yeah. I remember that, yes, I understand. I know.
So I proved myself at that point, and I was like,
You
okay.
sure did.
And the advisor at the time, he didn't have any money to reward me, but he used my publication and basically create a whole new world that he can get funding elsewhere. But at the time, he was basically just inviting me to his satellite lab in Germany. I get to spend 3 months there in Germany working inside of the campus of Siemens corporate.
Nice.
Yes, they got free beers.
Hopefully after work and not during.
You'll be surprised. They drink from the morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
Some cultures are just, they wake up with it in their hand.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was satisfying
So
to
much,
be
so
invited there
satisfying.
and to see it and to, be able to say, yep, it's based on
Exactly.
my paper.
Exactly. So I'm so proud of that experience. And then of course when I come back, I decided to go to Montana to do something that is less intense. And that turns out to be fantastic. I basically work from 8 to 4, and then I went out fishing every single day, which is amazing.
Yeah, Montana fishing's good.
Yeah, and during my fishing, I started to listen into podcasts and whatnot, and then I found this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's when you found Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes, I was like, because I was questioning why we don't make money when we're doing something great in academic, and so I
Yeah,
tried to
that's,
find.
yeah. Yeah, I asked the same thing myself. It took me many years to figure it out. But in academia, you don't make money until you make faculty. Like if you stay, you're going to write papers, you're going to write. They have multiple ways of making money. And I didn't realize that. But basically, you have to make faculty. Once you've moved out of a junior faculty and into a tenured faculty, by that time you've written your many papers, you've published books, you're speaking at conferences. Companies, maybe like Siemens or whatever, are paying you to do some things, and you're tenured, which means
Yeah,
unless they catch you burning down the university, you're not going anywhere.
no, yeah,
So all these multiple streams of income have been built up over decades and decades of work, and they make very good money. And in some of the universities, they would allow you to have your child go there for free. Now they're starting. It depends on the university, but there's UC has they started to stop that practice when I left, which was many years ago.
Hmm, I didn't know that.
But I imagine in some universities it still exists, which, if you've got kids and you went through a master's and a PhD and junior faculty and all that, you know how much money it is.
Yes,
Yeah, but sure don't make money at the
you don't.
anywhere below.
No, no. And this is,
How was the fishing?
oh, that was pleasant, by the way. I get to practice every day. So I still remember when I was doing the fly fishing with Pace. He was like, I like no one here is going to beat me. I said, okay, I'll let you have that for just 15 minutes. And then I went out and I think I caught like 31 fishes, from,
Wow.
yeah. So it was awesome. Well, I'm not catching the most, from the people in that group, but that was also my first time fly fishing. I've always been, do the what's that called, the traditional one, the conventional way of fishing.
Yeah, call it fishing
Fishing. Okay, cool. Anyway,
versus fly fishing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, I got to practice a lot, and I was listening to the podcast and read the books. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad was the books that I realized I really love reading, because I read that books over and over and over, and I skipped so many sleep. I was like, I just can't stop. And then I switched my focus from my research in science to research in real estate. I got my first real estate deals, or actually a condo in Bozeman, Montana. And I turned that condos into a co-living before the co-living existed. I turned
It would
into
have been called house hacking back
house
then.
hacking. House hacking. And essentially that deal freed me financially.
How many bedrooms was it, and how many did you make it into?
So initially it was 4 bedroom and 3.5 bath. And they just have this humongous like living room, and all that. And I basically turned into a bedroom, and still 3.5 baths.
Yeah, that's very doable.
Yes. Um, each room, like I was charging, I believe 750 or something like that, and collectively it basically make the money that surpassed my W-2 income at the time. I didn't even notice that. I was not in the mindset of figuring out what financial freedom means and all that. I basically realized that I got into this world that I'm way more excited, way more interested than what I was doing. And then I started to found that my W-2 advisor or managers was requesting a lot of things that I would say it doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this way? Like I started to question every single thing that my manager want me to do. If it not making sense, I just say no, I'm not doing that. And so that's when I started to be unemployable a little bit, I think.
Yeah, those managers would have been like those teachers that didn't like you.
Yes.
Benjamin, why are you questioning?
Yes.
Why are you not doing? And you're like, because it's stupid.
It doesn't make sense.
Oh my God. So did you quit or did they let you go?
So I have to say there's multiple factors. One is,
That means I know the answer.
yeah. Well, I mean, I worked there for like 2 years, and I did build a national lab for the country, and they just choose not to extend my contract from year three. But at the same time, the manager who has been there for his whole life, he one day was recognizing that his boss, who hired me, paid me almost more than what he made, and he was like, "You, this outsider, come to my town. You make more money than I am." And all that. And there's just a point that everybody knows what I made. And I was like, hey, I was previously working at Harvard in Boston, and they have to move me here to build this thing because you guys could not. And you are questioning my pay.
Yeah.
Like there's a point of me, my mentality was like that. And so what happened was I started to have conflict with them, and so essentially they choose not to extend, and there's turns out to be a little racist thing going on, like in Montana. And I got split like probably 2 times during my 2 years there.
Really?
Yes, crazy, right?
It is crazy, but you know what? I'm not sure it's racism as much as it is the people that are down here are just so desperate. They would have gone after you. You could have been you could have been totally looking the same as them and they'd find something else to criticize about you. Maybe your religion or maybe your children or maybe your wife. It's just a desperation that people have, and they think they have the right to use whatever they can find, and in your case, race, to strike out at you. It shows how little minded they are. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah.
But there is a good thing about it, and that is that you know what it feels like so that you can prepare your kids
Yeah.
not to allow it
Yeah.
and to stand guard against people who are going to be of that heart.
You're absolutely right. The sad part was my girlfriend at the time, my wife right now, she was with me, and people were saying that Asian chicks stay, Asian men go back to your country. That's what they say, which is
Wow.
ridiculous, right? But now coming back to that situation, I was like today's me. I was thinking about if back then I was already in sub two, I was already doing what I'm doing, I would have figured a way to make everybody's money and change everybody's thought. Like I would have been creating some sort of big project for everybody to make money out of that projects, and then they will naturally get rid of the ideas of even thought about
Yeah.
that ideas.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. So it was me. I now see that as me not being a big enough person to create opportunity for myself and change my situation back then. So after 2 years, I moved myself back to East Coast or civilization, aka
What whereabouts in the East Coast did you go?
Delaware.
All right. Very nice.
And yeah, so basically, I ended up work for Siemens Healthcare there.
Hey, out of curiosity, was it a connection that you had started from the time you were in Germany or just totally unrelated?
It's unrelated. It just all come full circle. It was yeah. So basically, I went over there and helped them develop some sort of a lab diagnostic machine, and it was a job. So think about that. At the time, I was actually making a very dumb mistake. The very dumb mistake. I was selling my first property that made me financially free. Move away from the town for a job. And that was the first time I got myself into financial freedom and then pull myself out of financial freedom with me not knowing. So that is the mindset that I realized that was, you know, not not there.
Yeah. It's common though. It's common.
It is.
Yeah, I'm leaving, so how can I take care of the house?
Yes. And also, like, I need a job. Like, what do you mean I don't need a job? Right? So yeah, I basically went, come back to East Coast, and then I built my career. I spent 5 years working in that companies, and I rebuilt my portfolio in Delaware, and that got me back into financial freedom again. This time, I did realize I was financially free,
You did
and
or you didn't?
I did,
Good.
because I was intentionally building that portfolio,
Right.
and then I got into multifamily. I got into what I'm doing, and the rest is history.
Oh, no, you don't. The rest is history. We're just getting started
Yes.
into the part that I want to know about because your life is super, super interesting, Benjamin. And I am so grateful that you're willing to come on this platform and share it. And, but in many ways, you've gotten to the point where it's just getting started because you did make yourself financially free again through a portfolio real estate, correct?
Yes, real estate.
All right. Quickly talk to us about what was in that portfolio because I want to get to the point. Right now, you're doing businesses, correct?
Correct. Business
Okay.
acquisition.
All right. So let's talk about what was that portfolio like and how did I know that you advocate buying businesses with no money down using creative financing. I want you to elaborate on that and talk to us about how you evaluate business opportunities and how you leverage other people's money, like what you're doing now.
Got
So
it.
bring us up
Sure.
to date.
Sure. So the portfolio was basically a couple of, three property in Delaware and long-term rental, and I got them through like conventional financing. That was before me exploring, creative finance. But yeah, but still super down payment, super small down payment. So basically cash flow well. I also have a couple property in Florida, and I got into a large multifamily deals in Dallas, Texas, which is an 80
Now, how
door.
did you do that part? Because buying buying traditionally, the three were they single family homes?
Yes,
Okay, that I understand because that you had done, and that's very ordinary. Very a lot of people do that. But how did you go? And that would definitely give you income and probably enough to live on. But how did you go from that to Florida? Because Florida is long distance now, and to the other areas and multifamily. What what brain shift did you have to make? What contacts? Where were you? And were you in sub two?
sure. So I spent about 2 3 years of my 5 year stay in Delaware looking into multifamily. I quickly realized single family could not get me to where I want to be. So I looked into multifamily and I learned from Kenny McElroy. And also I have later on explored sub two. And essentially my first met with Pace was actually in my first projects in Dallas, Texas, my first multifamily projects. Yes. So that was actually me kind of switching my direction to multifamily and focused on my first syndication. That was still somewhat conventional, is syndication. And yeah, so basically I acquired that property along with a group of people. And later on I joined Sub 2. Sub 2 provide a lot of people that I get to learn from and do business with, right? And so I found out that there was a deals in Florida that nobody was buying, and I was very new to Sub 2, and I was like, this is such a great deal. How come nobody is buying it? And
What was it?
it was in St. Augustine, Florida.
What was it?
Oh, it's a single family home.
Okay.
Yeah, and that single family home was basically a I think 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and it has a huge lot. So I basically just decided to say, okay, I'm going to go there and take a look. I flew down there with my family, stay in the Airbnb, which is 10 minutes away. And I look at the property, I was like, oh my God, it looks so bad.
The pictures were not representative?
Yeah, yeah.
You're
No.
kidding.
No. So, but the good thing is, I stay in that Airbnb and I didn't go there just to vacation. I went there and used my so called research strategy. I reach out to all Airbnb's owners in the area and offer to meet them in person
Why?
to learn about the market, to identify whether that's a good location, to take on their opinions on the block that I was buying. And then I found a business partner who is outside of the community, but she's amazing. She used to own like 50 million cleaning companies, and she's now somewhat retired. She's somewhat retired, but she's like in her yes, crazy.
Nice.
Yes, and we stay in her farm, and she was just running this Airbnb on the side, as being a side hustle or whatever. She and I developed this such a great relationship that we are now like we talk all kind of topic, with each other, and I learned so much from her. And although she was not in the community, she shared actually a similar spirit and similar mindset with people in the community, and she was the one who made me decided to buy that property. She ended up
So even though it was ugly,
sorry,
even though it was ugly,
it was ugly. Yes, she actually funded the projects. She initially was my PMP, and then we upgrade her to be my main operator.
nice.
So
Wow.
yeah, so she and I now we have developed into a relationship that we just always talk, and I imagine this. I get to tap into someone who used to run a 50 million companies. How awesome that is.
I know.
And the thing is, she doesn't even act like it.
I know. I mean, sorry. I'm sorry. I know. I know. I'm sorry. I have a similar relationship with Abraham Gray.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love him because he is not so hoity toity and because he's so giving and he's so knowledgeable and he'll give me his time and he cares for me. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did I get so lucky?
I love Abraham. Abraham came on my podcast I will tell you, I was shaking when he just came on my podcast. And when he come on my podcast, that was the day I closed my first business acquisition.
Yay!
Yes, and I had to
Awesome.
rush. I had to rush back because there was a accident happened on the way back, and I was still in the shock of the accident. And I was like, "Oh my god, I have this big guest coming up. I have to get back." And so I was having that podcast interview in a very weird way and whatnot. And later on, I was explaining to Abraham when I met him, in person. He act so easily and say, "Hey, Benjamin, whenever you're ready, always reach out and just put me on your calendar again."
Nice.
Like, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's so giving. He's so giving and genuine.
Yes.
I feel very, very blessed. And it sounds to me like you had a female version of Abraham.
Abraham, yes.
Down to earth, hardworking, giving. That's what I aspire to. One day, I hope that I can be of that value to other people.
You are ready. You just have
In
not
a little
recognized it.
way. I mean, my heart is big, but I don't have the experience and the wealth yet that these two people have. Because when you have the wealth screws you over and makes your head so freaking big that you forget. I guess I don't know. I've seen a lot of people go bad because of money, or they think, "Oh, wait a minute, nobody helped me. I did it all by myself." Or they try to bite the hand that feeds them. Like hurt the person that got them there? Okay, I don't know what happens, but I have seen it many, many times. I saw it at the Harvard Business School.
All the time.
Ex-husband was going there. Wealthy people fall in two categories, guys. They're either very, very down to earth, and I would say that that's not the majority. And the majority is more filled with their own false sense of worth because they have money. Money's money, but it's not the same value as if you have character and heart and have money, because a lot of people have character and heart, but if they don't have money, they're not in a position to help other people, which doesn't make them less valuable. It's just that they can't influence as many and help. So I am so happy that you have that lady in your life.
I'm so fortunate.
Promise me that you will interview her sometime.
I will. And actually, she's going to come up to New Hampshire, and we're going to meet in person. And I was going to do a quick podcast with her.
And you make sure I know when that's on.
I will let you know.
I love people like that. It's just the best. Well, that must have been a huge help for you.
That was a big, I want to say it's a big mental support for me to pursue that deals. She was also fascinated on how we can acquire that creatively. So yeah, so basically we acquired that deals, and that is now operating as a short-term rental. So she basically ran it just alongside with her Airbnb, which is 10 minutes away. So which is very,
Nice.
very nice. Yeah. So basically that's kind of where I get into my multifamily and financial freedoms, with the portfolio. Later on, I did quickly realize most multifamily, like large apartment complex, doesn't really worth the debt during that time when the interest rate being jacked up.
Yeah.
And when that happened, sophisticated investor, they pencil down, including my mentor Kenny McCrory. He was basically just telling people, "Hey, I'm not doing any deals now." And I was like, "Okay, I just got into the space. I just got down one deals, and you're telling me you're penciling down? What do you mean?" And then I realized that there's a cycles and whatnot, and typically a cycle take like 2 to 7 years. So what I did was I have to make a decision whether I will just wait on the sideline for 2 to 7 years, or I want to move forward with whatever else. And then I got into Cody Sanchez's channel, YouTube channel, and I watched every single YouTube, and then I pivot into business acquisition.
That's what led you to business?
Yes, that's what led me to business acquisition.
Awesome.
I did not join her community. I didn't take any courses. I just watched her video, get inspired, and then I switched all my so-called research base or research habit into business underwriting. I underwrote 172 deals before I submit my first letter of intent.
Are you serious?
100%.
Okay, so research is research, and underwriting isn't rocket science per se. But where did you get your underwriting criteria? Was that from?
My multifamily experience.
Okay,
Yeah.
but like different people have different spreadsheets for that sort of thing.
Yes.
Bo in our community has, different things. I'm thinking Cody probably, Sanchez probably has her own underwriting for businesses.
Yeah, so I have to say that at that point I underwrote enough multifamily, and I kind of thinks that all business are the same. Like to the end of the
Okay.
day, it's income, expense, net profit. Like that is the highest level. So I basically just applied toward business acquisition, but of course business has so many different factors that you should look at. And so I basically dive deep into each factors, 72 different business that get me to the level of understanding how I should look at those factors and whether those factors can make big impact or not. So that kind of shape how I underwrote businesses and how I start to look at business that I want to acquire.
Can you talk for a moment at that time? Were you on your own or had you started to develop a team? Because I want to talk about your team too. And I know that we are over an hour and I don't care. As long as you're willing to get us to the end, I am interested.
Sounds good. Yes, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Back
Were
to
you
that
by
time,
yourself underwriting
I,
or?
I was underwriting and bought my do the business acquisition myself because back then I didn't feel like I need anybody else. I was very new to the community and I was like, okay, I don't really need anybody. I've been buying the rental property myself. I underwrote things and I could make things happen, all that. And I quickly realized I was terribly wrong. I found myself to be acquiring three businesses within 1 month,
What?
and I had another three business to close on the following month.
Oh my God. What were you thinking?
Exactly what I was thinking. But the thing is, those are all great deals. Those are like the deal after my underwriting is like, this is awesome deals. Like I did not just buy anything. It was
I understand, but you're only one person.
I didn't know that I need to have a team. I didn't know that. I thought I'll just call a property management company and say, hey, can you take over? It doesn't work like that, right?
No.
So I still remember that was the year, the first year of Squad Up. I went to Squad Up
So 23.
and I went to squat up, and Pace was making this arrangement that just made me feel like he knew everything that I need. He put Matt Sorensen on the stage, and then I was jumping onto the stage after his speech and basically in tear. And I quickly realized that I need to change. I need a team. And then I joined Owners Club because Pace was saying that we will give you an operator. And then I built my teams inside Owners Club.
Wow.
Yes. So I found my,
I'm very, very impressed.
I'm very, very appreciative, honestly speaking. I'm super grateful. Because of this opportunity, because of this community, I was able to meet amazing people. I have to say, before I put together my current team, I went through four different group of operator, and some of them were terrible. Like some of them, they basically just come in and try to act like a gator or shark, and basically was like, hey, I'm going to run the business for you, but no matter how I do it, you still need to pay me. And but there are also other group of people, they are just simply just not a good fit. Like they run real estate, they don't have experience with business, and they basically just shy away with the problem that we're facing. And there's a point I was very desperate until I started to share my vision. I was sharing with people, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and I can only do this. I really need help with this, and that. I started to attract people who come to me and say, "Hey, I have this. I've done this." And what Pei said was actually a very well put. He was saying that a great operator or great team members is never being hired. is always being attracted. And so essentially right now my main operator Yep, he is basically running the business that we acquire. I focus on acquisition, he focus on operation, and along with the whole journey we add in multiple people on system processes, like Kyle Huber on system, like Heather Gazard on system. And also we now have a separate company that focus on acquisition.
Nice.
Yes, so because acquisition, there's also operation for the acquisition, and there's like operation for the business that we own. So yeah, so Whitney Parkel, Leah Murga are all in our team.
What do they do?
So Colin Yep, he run the business, basic operation. Kyle Huber and focus on single business system integration. Heather Gazar work on cross business integration.
Nice.
And Leah Murga, she focused on two things. One is capital raising. The other one is commercial account. She used to work with large corp and deal with tens of millions of orders.
What kind of accounts? I'm sorry.
A commercial account,
Commercial accounts.
like
Gotcha.
commercial customers. Yeah. So basically, help to grow our company with those big account. And Whitney Parkel, she is one of our latest joint partner. She deal with the operation for my acquisition business, basically coordination and whatnot, and put me on, including this podcast, right?
Yes, she did reach out to me. But I will also tell you, you were on my short list.
Wow. Okay.
That's one of the benefits of having a podcast. That's why when she reached out, I was like, hell yeah, now let's go.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure indeed. And my pleasure. So it's interesting to me, the team you have, I'm impressed, very impressed. And yet you said you had 4 different groups of operators. Why groups of operators? Were they being presented as groups, or just like how did the first 4 go through? Like, what was the difference between those first 4 and the one that you're with now?
Yeah, so initially I was just trying to put a team to run the business I acquire. And I thought I could acquire the business myself. But later on, I quickly noticed that this is not scalable. Meaning, um, I later on through Owners Club, I developed my long term vision, which we want to turn our business into the Uber in home service industry.
Wait a minute, the Uber for home service industry.
Yes. So
Oh,
think about that. We're right now, home service industry is still running in the way of years 2000. People are still calling like plumber, electricians, like landscaper, and they need to make like 10 call to have 5 people show up and have 3 people give you a reasonable quote, and 1 people you would hope that they would actually deliver and not ripping you off. This is not up to date, or this is not the way that I would envision to have right now. So I'm like, we are mission to change that. And throughout the journey, we are benefiting 3 people, 3 group of people. One is dealing with the silver tsunami. Business owner who are looking to retire, they got stuck and they could not retire. Want to acquire business from them and help them retire. Number 2 is the less fortunate. We want to hire less fortunate and put them back to the workforce to allow them to have a job. In our community, there's so many people try to house them, but after being housed, they still need a job. So we want to put them back to work. Number 3 is, of course, we want to provide a better service for the homeowners, that they don't really need to make those calls to have their home maintained and enjoy the service. So that's our mission.
wow. I think it's appropriately big for someone of your life.
Oh my god, I'm so glad to hear this for some reason.
You can do it. You can do it.
I
You can
know
do it.
this is a 2000 shop instead of 5 people. So this is why we started with laundromat. Laundromat being the business that has the highest successful rate of the business. We want to build a strong foundations with laundromat portfolio. So right now we have acquired two laundromat, both creative and both has such a great story just because the way we acquire them.
Nice.
Um, and our goal next is to put together this $3 million laundromat club. So
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But hold it right there because I got a couple of questions.
okay,
Sorry, I don't want us to, I've got a couple of questions, so I'm going to ask them. What do you, and it's a little bit of a step back, but it's interesting to me. What was the difference between the people that came to you originally? I'm not sure, but it seemed like they were there just to take, and the team that you have now. And the team that you have now, are you guys sharing ownership or are you one JV, or talk about how you've structured it? And would that first group, would you have structured it the same way?
sure. So when I started to put my team together, I want people to be incentivized to the work that they have done instead of looking for a paycheck. So therefore, I put them as a partners.
Good.
And so we are all partners in the sense of we own the portfolio, own the business together.
Okay.
So basically, my initial group, it was a company called Boston Home Service. That was the group that owns all the business that we acquire. The COO is Colin Yep, and also Kyle, Leah were the other two that was originally in the team. And later on, we put together this company called Ownership Code that we focus on acquisition. We help people acquire. We acquire ourselves. We teach people how to acquire. And there was a group that is mainly being run by Whitney Parkell and Heather Gazar, and Leah also is in this business to help us do the fundraise. So we are all partners in the sense of we own the business together. I deeply believe that if we all put into the effort, we should all enjoy the result.
I feel the same way. Does that mean that at this point, are people getting distributions or payment because it's still young, right?
Yes, it's still
Or
young.
is it that everyone is bringing some money in and you have to also be able to support yourself from another source at this point?
So at this point, I have to say Boston Home Service team, they have been grinding for 9 months without getting paid. I have been putting up all the capital myself,
Okay.
working capital and all the thing that the business may need. Yeah. So they basically put in their time and effort. For ownership code, we essentially started Heather and I started initially, and it was just a Zoom call initially to be a 30-minute Zoom call that turns into a 3 hours Zoom. They would just get into the building, and that essentially create a foundations of the business. And we started to not just elevate our way to acquire, we also elevate. We put together a platform, our small community of people who want to acquire businesses with our aligned spirit and whatnot. We start to put together a small community, inheriting sub two community, FYI, and
What's it called?
it's called Ownership Code. Ownership Code.
Got it.
Yeah, our community is also called Ownership Code. So we have also put together some training program for people to learn my framework of acquiring businesses, and every weeks we do this Q&A call to help people who are actively acquiring business to bring in any question they have. Basically we help them out 100% free. If people don't have much questions, I dive into a specific topic that I recently experienced and share with people on what I've learned. My
So
goal is
I apologize. So you have open office hours, right?
open office hours, Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern was my open office hour. Anybody can come. And my goal for the call is just one. If I can help one person to avoid one mistake that would cost them their entirety of their financial, you know, life, then that is a huge win. People jump into business acquisitions blindly. They only see the cash flow from real estate perspective, And I am so worried about that. I personally went through it. I made so much mistake. And the only reason why I didn't make big enough of mistake that tanked me was because I underwrote so many businesses.
Most people won't be writing 172, underwriting 172 before they make an offer. And maybe it should be a requirement that you should have to do that. I understand what you're saying. And I think it would be very, very helpful. With the ownership code, was it similar to the Boston Services team where you brought the capital to run it and then everyone is putting in sweat equity? Or did you all put in a little bit of money? Or how's that structured?
So ownership code, I put in money to fund it, and Heather put in effort into the business. We were fortunately initially have some people who want to join our community, and we did monetize the 10 weeks framework training that we put out. So we made a few sales initially to sustain for a little bit. And
So is that seen as an educational opportunity or is it actually a way that you're actually buying?
so we do all three things. We acquire, we help people acquire, we teach people how to acquire. So when we acquire, the whole OC team, ownership code team, would jump in to help out everything and then transfer it to Boston Home Service team.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a good idea.
Yes, because Boston Home Service team will be overwhelmed by just dealing with daily, you know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
OC team kind of get everything organized, get everything's on the good shape, and then give it to Boston Home Service to run it. So the second thing that we teach people or we help people how to acquire was we provide a service. So basically, if people have sent me a deal and say, "Hey, Benjamin, I want to acquire this business," then my team would jump into the underwriting and go through the numbers. And if it's a good numbers, we will walk through the deal with you and put it under contract with you. And toward the end, you will go and close it. With that, we will charge a fee, or acquisition
So
fee.
you're like consultants
Yes.
or equity? Did you say equity?
No, we will charge a fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're basically a consultant.
Consultant, yes. And the third is we teach people how to acquire, which we put together the community because we learn the best way to learn is to learn with the people who are doing it every day. So we put together this community, also called ownership code.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the ownership code, are you doing that community on Facebook? Are you doing it in Discord or in school?
Facebook.
Okay.
So we have a free Facebook group and also a paid Facebook group.
Well, Pace has taught us that, hasn't he?
Yes, I didn't want to change anything. I just want to follow the blueprints and really try to help as many people as we can the fastest we can.
I
There's no,
love it.
there's no point of reinventing the wheel, right?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I like the way that you have Boston Services team set up. Are Heather, Whitney, Heather, and Leah part owners of that as well?
No, not yet. Leah was originally from Boston Home Service. Heather and Whitney, we're still trying to figure a structure way that they have exposure to the ownership of the business we acquire because they are working on it because they want to own laundromat, they want to own businesses. And ownership code, we basically handle the acquisition process, but we don't own it.
Right, right. And it doesn't kind of defeats their purpose
Yes.
if they're literally working to pass it
Yes.
on.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
you'll figure that out.
yes, we are actively figuring out because like my partner's interest is always in my mind. Up to this point, I appreciate my team in a way that I always looking out on what they need because that's kind of the only thing I have, my team.
That is so fantastic, Benjamin. And you're not, are any of your partners near you physically, or are you all over the place?
So Colin is in New Hampshire, which is about 1 hours away from me, and Kyle is probably 3 hours, and all the other people are in Carolina. So it's a distance, but nothing stopping us from doing the work nowadays.
I know, but at least you're on the same time zone.
Yes, we are all in the same time zone.
Is that a requirement?
No, but it does make things easier.
Yeah, yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Man, oh man. I cannot get over what you're doing. And it's humongous. And now I feel like we should just be starting just to find a little more. The very first business that you guys are going after are
Landscaping
laundry.
company. No, the first one was landscaping company that I acquire, but we
Okay.
now focusing on laundromat because we now have a much bigger goal to tackle, and we need to be strategic on which one we want to build first, and that's laundromat.
Why?
Because laundromat enjoy 95% of success rate across all the business, and laundromat is also one of the most easier entry to real estate investor, like mindset entry, like they would understand it. It's somewhat having a hard asset that produce income, and that is something that the real estate investor can understand it easier
Are
because we
they all going to be creative?
we acquired them all creatively, but I think creative is just a tool. Our goal is to help the business owner retire. Whatever, however we do it, we'll achieve that. We will do it, including creative.
Okay. That's awesome. That's really awesome. With the landscaping companies, like one of the things that I envision when you talk about having the Uber for home industry is that they're all relatively in the same area.
Yes,
Are you thinking that too?
yes, we're trying to build a portfolio in Boston
Hmm.
because our original planning was to showcase how the new way of providing home service in Boston. And when we showcase that, it can be documented, it can be branded, and then we will go through roll up and IPO the company. And as soon as we IPO it, the whole business will be like a wildfire that just goes across the nation.
Right. I agree. I agree. So the landscaping companies are in the Boston area. Do you have any laundry companies in Boston?
Yes, we own two laundromat now. In one in Boston downtown, the best location you can ever find in Boston. 5 step away from getting on a subway train.
Nice.
5 step. So good. The other store is in Nashua, New Hampshire that we recently acquired. And that is also a very popular store. The business has been around for 50 plus years. The
Nice.
previous owner built this laundromat when she was 17 with her past husband. And 10 years ago, her husband passed. The husband kind of leave this good, great asset to her, but she's really not a good businesswoman. So she has started to have some bad debt and whatnot. At the time we acquired, there's 67 days before the business lose all its equity. And by 16 days, we closed on the business and was able to give her a little check.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What is next in your? I see the big vision. Well, actually, run down everything that you see as part of the home industry business. You've got the landscaping, the laundry. I would venture to say cleaning companies, painting,
Yes.
roofing.
Yes.
Okay, paving.
Yeah. So all the thing that you mentioned, I have to say that we're now cautiously evaluating because there are things that's going to be replaced by robot and AI. So right now, in the short terms, we are focusing on laundromat. We try to build a 1.2 million EBITDA of laundromat store, and
Nice.
we are looking to put together this $3 million laundromat club that we put together probably 100 capital partner from the community that will own the laundromat with us, the whole portfolio with us. And
So
our
it'll be a little bit like fractional.
yes, we're going through fractional. Exactly.
You're going through fractional.
Yes, we are going
Oh,
through
okay.
fractional. Yes.
Sorry, I guessed it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's 100% transparency. We want it to be transparent. We want third party to handle all the financial, taxes and whatnot. So yeah, so that's kind of our phase one. And we still have like 5 to 6 different phases for us to really hit the point of being the Uber in home service industry. So I should have a massive plan. Something like, I think something like what Pace had. But yeah, right now we're still in phase one, and I think we're going to achieve our phase one milestone probably in the next 4 to 5 months. So I'm excited about it.
Nice. Nice. Very nice indeed. So tell me, what is 4 or 5 months? Will that complete the laundry? Like, where are you going to be and what's next?
Sure.
I
So
want to know your order of things.
yes. So for the laundromat, we are telling people who want to join 3 million laundry club that we will take 12 months to deploy the whole 3 million and put together probably 8 to 10 store. But I think we may be able to achieve that way sooner. It's just my bad habit of basically under promising people and over deliver.
It's a good idea,
Yeah. So
especially in this day and age. I mean, we don't know where the market's going, and I think people are starting to worry and liquidate things, So if they are putting money in, it's better to tell them it'll be this long before we start doing this than to overpromise and under deliver.
yeah, yeah.
The
I
market might be doing that on its own.
Yeah, and also I've learned from great mentor like Pace. There's a lot of things you have to communicate, 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 right? So we are trying to do everything we know to be the right thing to do. Yeah, and answer your questions. The next step would be putting together this cleaning division for sure. So we basically will be starting to look into cleaning companies. I actually acquired one in the past, and we ended up dissolve that partnership because of the mission misalignment and whatnot. But we can quickly put it back. So the next phase is going to be completing the cleanings division, which I think collectively will be making about 5 to 8 million EBITDA probably in the next 20.
Wow. Can I ask, when you're talking about the cleaning division, what market are you going to go after? Is it going to be the housing market?
All in Boston. All in Boston.
Housing.
Yes, housing like Airbnbs, like residentials, housing and whatnot.
This might take you off your track just a teeny bit, but I'd like to give just a little bit of
Please.
advice, if I may, just because when it comes through life and there's things that I want to remember, I remember. Um, I had, he's passed now, unfortunately, but I had a first cousin who lived in Toronto, and he came to Canada. I came when I was only 5. He came when he was like 21 or something like that. He was already an adult, trying to figure out what to do. And he started cleaning. Doesn't matter if it's honest work, you do it. And then he started a cleaning company, cleaning houses. And one way or another, he ended up stumbling into getting a contract for a small bank. And I will tell you, he became a multi-millionaire, lots of money. He helped his daughter start a resort in Greece, very giving guy. So he had said to me at one time, Effie, remember, when you have to clean other people's dirt, it's honest work. But if you can clean an area which requires high security, such as a bank, you will be rich. And I thought about it. So I just want to tell you that I understand, residences, Airbnbs charge a bit more because they got to be, up to a certain standard and stuff. But if you can keep even just a small portion of
So good.
your portfolio into things that are going to require background checks for every employee, it's based on not robbing and on being ethical, whether they are banks or labs or anything that is high security.
Got it. This is a very good reminder. Yeah, I mean, because of my network or people I know, we may easily get in. We're actually thinking about going into like a clean room, like where we make those micro devices. And there's all kind of semiconductor company that are struggling to find a proper cleaning companies to do that because it require high skilled and highly ethical people because one chip can worse the whole community of the houses. That is just
Yes,
right.
yes. And also trade secrets, right? That's the same thing with the banks and insurance companies and medical offices, things like that. They have to secure the files, the computers. And I've been in clean rooms before, and I understand. And you said something interesting to me about people are thinking about how to house people who need housing, but they're not thinking about how to employ them. If you were to decide, we're going to keep an eye on this and we're going to see if we can get even just a small contract, it could lead the cleaners to a place of aspiration. As long as you haven't been in prison, as long as you haven't been, doing drugs or stuff like that, if you've got a clean record. And many people end up close to being on the street or struggling because of economics or lack of education, not because of other things. And those people, you say, look, there's a step for you. You're going to start here. Once you've proven yourself, you're going to go up here, and then we're going to put you into special training. And now you're going to be in clean rooms, and you're going to be making more money than you can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keep it in mind, because I remember I always thought that I have to do that. And I don't really feel I have to have a cleaning company, but I have to remember what my cousin told me and what he experienced.
Wow. Wow. This is so good, because training program is one thing that in the plan, and I have no clue how that looked like yet. And
Oh,
you just gave
I
me a
had
great
one for
idea.
landscaping and for fix and flips for women. I've had a plan on how to do that and how
We
to
should work
educate
together on that.
from many years ago. And I sent it into Oprah one time, and it didn't get chosen. And I still have the freaking thing. And I still have it as a plan. I haven't done anything with it. And as you might know, I'm into capital raising now and co-living. But this plan, I think I probably will not be able to die until I really give it it's very much worthwhile. And that's why it won't go away. But the cleaning company comes from my cousin. Keep it in mind, that portion could probably end up being extremely profitable.
Got it. Great note. I remember that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm super, super stoked about what you're doing, and I want to talk and talk and talk, but I realize we're hitting close to 2 hours. So instead, I am going to see about us wrapping it down a bit. And a couple questions. Do you have to be in the owners club to be part of your team?
No. In fact, we recently bring on someone from our community who is also in sub 2 community. She basically expressed interest on business acquisition to a level that she show up every single Zoom that I put out. And by now I probably have put out hundreds of them. And
Nice.
yes, so to see the same person on every Zoom, that means something. So we bring her on to underwrite the deal because she's very good on the numbers. And at the same time, she used to work for IBM on a lot of data related work. So
Good.
really, we are overkilling.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, could you kindly tell us how people can reach out to you? I do have, hold on one second. I do have your
YouTube and Instagram.
That's right. I do have your YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically your name and the number 14.
Yes.
Is that because you have 13 other channels, or is that because Benjamin Huang is a very common name?
Yes, Benjamin Huang is a very common name, and 14 was my lucky number.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Mine's 13.
13? Wow, okay. Nice.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that Benjamin Huang would be that common. Oh, um, you know, Hung being a Taiwanese name, Chinese name, I've learned. Hey, what was your given name? Your parents didn't call you Benjamin, did they?
No.
What did they call you?
My given name was Zhongxuan Huang.
Again?
Zhongxuan Huang.
Huang.
Yes.
All right.
Very, very.
And as a result, they choose to take what I call an Anglo name or WASP name or American name. And I used to always tell them, why do you do that?
My
And they'd
parents
say,
name Benjamin. Because we're so into Benjamin Franklin.
there you go. There you go. Or Charles for Prince Charles. It's so interesting to me. And the real reason is that they don't think that Americans or English speakers can learn their names. And I'm like, so what? Make them learn their name. And
Force
they're like,
them.
no, teacher, I'll just do it. I'll make it easier. I'll call it, I'll go with Benjamin. So I can see how it is common. Very nice. Very nice. All right, everybody, here we are. Please do check him out. I have to say, I love your thumbnails and everything. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I've already subscribed. I cannot believe that Benjamin Huang only has 311 subscribers.
We have a lot more work.
Every single person who ever watches What the Effie, get your butt over there and subscribe. I think that podcasting and learning and sharing is a blue ocean. I love helping other people. You're going to probably learn more on his than you do on mine. So do it. And on your IG, you still have the same Benjamin Hung 14. Very, very nice. Where else can people reach you? How can they get in on, the Zoom series that you offer?
Yeah, if you go to Instagram and DM me there Q&A, if you DM me Q&A, then you will get a link.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to Instagram and you message him and just say
Q&A.
Q&A.
Yes.
I want Q&A. And then you'll send him the link.
Yes. It will pop out. Yes.
Awesome. Well, I am very, very, very honored. I only have one other question while we are on air. And that is, please, would you do me the honor of coming back?
Let me think. 1,000,000%. How about that?
I would love to have you back. It could be on an anniversary. It could be on an event that has happened where you want to shed more light. I just think that I love everybody. Well, no, I don't love the snakes. You snakes, get out. But anyways, I love most people in our communities, but some are destined for a greatness that is reserved for just a few. And I truly believe that you are one of them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the word.
I'm super, super excited and stoked. So it's an open invitation. Just let me know when. I want you back.
Thank you so much. And likewise, I would want to be on your podcast anytime. If there's anything I can provide to value to your audience, I would love to jump on.
Excellent. Okay, guys. Well, that's where we're going to say goodbye for today. And we shall see you next Monday. Thank you so much. And don't forget, subscribe to both of us, for heaven's sakes. See you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.